Hello and welcome to another edition of Ask Ron. Question I get all the time is, how do I get big legs, or how do I get bigger legs? And I get this question a lot because I have pretty big legs. I'm not going to put any pictures up, but I urge you all to go follow me on Instagram at Ron Harris Muscle. At Ron Harris Muscle. I don't even have 10,000 followers yet, which is really pathetic because I've been on Instagram for like over 4 years now. What the hell? You know, every girl with a big butt and most of her teeth has like 100,000 followers. So come on, guys, follow that Ron Harris Muscle. So anyway, you know, asking somebody with a really great body part how to improve that body part or build it yourself isn't always the best idea. I just want to preface this whole discussion by saying that, because a lot of times there is a tremendous genetic component involved. For instance, if you think of all the people with the best calves in sport bodybuilding ever, you had Mike Matarazzo, you had Paul DeMeo, Eric Fankhauser, Flex Lewis. None of these people trained their calves. No, none. They didn't do a thing. Especially Matarazzo, who is usually the first name that comes up when we talk about the best calves of all time in bodybuilding. Didn't do a damn thing for him. He couldn't even do a lot of types of cardio because his calves would pump up so much, and it would, you know, it was so painful. So someone has really great arms or a great chest or great legs, unless you know that that person didn't always have such tremendous development in that body part, you might want to ask someone who's had to struggle more. And I know that's counter, because in the bodybuilding magazines I've written thousands of articles about arm training for guys that never had a problem building their arms, and sometimes had to stop training their arms for long periods of time because they were just getting too big. Branch Warren had to stop training his legs for 2 different periods of a year each at points in his career, at various points, to allow his upper body to catch up. So, you know, I had some good genetics for legs. As soon as I started training them, they grew pretty rapidly, and anything I did, as long as I was training hard and consistently, which I did, they responded to. So, but that doesn't mean that I have nothing to offer you, because I have had to work with a lot of people over the years, give advice to a lot of bodybuilders and aspiring bodybuilders, and talk to many people about how they brought their legs up. And I have experimented with many different training methods on my own to figure out, you know, how could I get my legs even better, because, you know, even though I probably should have backed off on them a little bit at times, I never did, because, you know, I figured, well, my arms are just never going to be that great, but my legs could be great, so why not just see how great I can make them? So anyway, let's get to the question at hand. How do you build big legs? First of all, the most important exercise, as you know, squats. Barbell squats. Not a squat machine, not a Smith machine squat, the barbell squat on your back. Can you build really good legs without squats? Sure. But that's like saying, you know, could I get from New York to California without taking the interstate? You could. It's going to take you a lot longer. You're going to have to go out of your way. It's going to be a lot more difficult. It's not going to be much as clear a path. So unless you have some genuine issue with your knees or your lower back, some type of injury that truly prevents you from squatting and makes it a really bad idea for you, squats are always going to be the #1 movement for building the overall leg. Done properly and 2 parallel or below, and I'll get to the depth thing soon, don't worry. Squats will not only build your quadriceps, they're going to build your glutes, your hamstrings, even your calves are going to get a little bit of growth out of squats, because it's the most basic lower body exercise there is. Just like the deadlift is the most basic upper body exercise, picking something up, squatting is a natural movement for human beings. If you look at babies squat down. They do low, perfect parallel or below parallel squats from the time before they can even walk a lot of times. It's just a very natural movement to squat down, to bend down, do a deep knee bend, and then stand up. So you put something on your back, a bar across your neck with resistance on it, it's going to build everything in that lower body as it struggles to raise you up with that weight on your back. So squats. How many sets, how many reps? There's no set formula, and you know, you can do as many as few as 3 work sets of squats in a workout if they're done intensely and correctly, or you can do as many as 10 and get results out of any of those. The rep range, I've gone as low over the years as 3 to 5 for some sets, not all sets, because if you do low reps all the time on squats or anything, you're going to get a lot stronger. You're not going to have the muscles under tension long enough to get that growth response that we want, which is why I've known plenty of guys who can squat much more weight than me, much stronger in the squat than me, but legs half the size of mine, because a lot of them never did the higher reps. They were always training, they didn't realize it, but for strength, more so than size. Reps need to be a little higher for the lower body. I do believe that. I do believe they have more of the endurance muscle fibers, the slow twitch, so they need more reps. But on squats, I'd say the best rep range for squats is anywhere from 10 to 20. I never go below 10 anymore. You know, I'm older now, obviously. In my younger years, I did like to test my strength out a lot more, so I would do lower reps. And my form wasn't always the greatest when I was younger because I was more concerned about moving the weight. So the one thing you really need to get in your head with any type of leg training is the weight you use is not as important as the quality of your reps. So if you're loading up a bar with 500-600 pounds and you're dipping down about this much, which I see all the time in the gyms, on Instagram, Facebook, everyone's all proud. Oh, I squatted a new personal best, 500. Well, you know, you didn't squat it because, to me, if you didn't get the parallel, at least parallel, it doesn't count. You didn't do a rep. That's me. I go below parallel. You know, my structure is very well suited to deep squats. I can get a range of motion on them for whatever reason. Just the way my hips, knees, everything, ankles, everything's structured on me, I can get very low in a squat where it almost looks like my butt's going to hit the ground. So I go well below parallel. Not everyone can do that, and not everyone should do that. Taller people, in general, you know, if you have these long femurs and more narrow hips, you're not going to be able to get that depth. So parallel, work to at least parallel. If you can go below that safely with your structure, I encourage it. I do believe that you'll get more out of deep squats. And you're not going to be able to go as heavy, but that doesn't matter. I think you're better off doing, say, 10 really good deep reps with 225 than you are the same amount of half reps with 315. You know, it's like a curl. Would you only curl halfway up? Or bench press, would you? I know a lot of people do this. They only go halfway up. Or you're not getting a full range of motion. So full range of motion with squats. Footwear, I talked about this on my last Ask Ron. I prefer to be in socks these days. I feel more grounded, more stable, just a better stability for me. I can do the reps without really worrying about slipping and sliding around, which any kind of footwear except, you know, very secure squatting shoes or some flat-soled shoes, those are okay too. Those are good choices. But if you can go in socks, I urge you at least try it. You might, like me, decide this is the best way. I'm just going to do this from now on. I'm going to squat in my socks. Stance. You hear all the time people trying to say this is the stance. You should be shoulder width with your squats. Some people can do deep reps shoulder width. Other people need to open up their stance wider. You know, there's no rules on this. Everyone has a different structure, different hips, different femur lengths, torso to leg ratio. You know, you have to find the best form for you, where it feels comfortable, where you can get a full range of motion, and you can really push some weight safely. My stance is definitely not shoulder width. It's wider than that. I know some people can go shoulder width. I don't think you're very stable going any closer than that. I would not encourage anyone to try that with a barbell on their back, you know, like feet together. You can do that maybe with a Smith machine, hack squats, leg presses, things like that. You can put your feet closer together safely. But if you have a heavy bar, loaded barbell on your back, I would want a real stable base. So I would want my legs at least shoulder width apart. Where to point your toes? Straight ahead or just a little bit out. I wouldn't go crazy with the duck feet. You know, you'll hear that the knee should travel over the foot. It's going to do that anyway for the most part. You know, if you have access to someone that's, say, a power lifter who knows really good squatting technique, you can have them help you out. but bear in mind that they're probably going to be encouraging you to have the bar lower down on your back, which is how powerlifters squat, because then you're engaging a lot more of the lower back and glutes and hips with the bar lower down your back, and you can use a lot more weight, but you're not shifting the emphasis as much as you would be to the quads, which is why when I do it, the bar is right there. It's right there on the top of my traps. It's right across my neck, on the back of my neck. It's called a high bar squat. Front squats are also very good. Front squats are excellent for people who have a hard time really isolating the quads. And when I say isolating the quads, you're not going to be able to isolate your quads in a squat. I should clarify that. It's a compound movement, so you're always going to be involving the hips, the glutes, the hamstrings. No matter what you do, they're part of the movement. But that being said, a lot of people have trouble keeping an upright stance. They start hunching over and doing something more like a good morning with the bar on their back. For those people, I really encourage you, and I encourage everyone to try front squats. And you can use this grip with your hands like this. I've seen some people do it like this. I've even seen some people that can do front squats without holding onto the bar, which is, I wouldn't advocate that. That's crazy to me. The bar's going to roll right off. So front squats force you to stay upright, your spine. They also force you to shift more of the emphasis onto the quads. So front squats are also an excellent option. I've done my fair share, not as many as the regular, the standard barbell squat with the bar in back of you. That's definitely how I built most of my leg mass over the years. The reps, let's get back to that again. I don't believe you should ever go lower than, say, 5 reps. There's no reason to ever go lower than that. You can do these sets, very heavy sets of 5 or 6, just to try to get your overall strength up, and that does carry over a little bit into how much you can use on the reps. But for the most part, I would say keep your reps around 10 to 12, 10 to 15. If you have issues where your knees or ankles or something, or your lower back can't take very heavy loads, you're probably better off doing sets of 20. Kevin Leveroni just talked about in his last video, he would do 4 sets of 20 with 315. He did that the other day. That's brutal. If you've ever done sets of 20 on the squat, multiple sets of 20, wow. You might not even need to do anything else for quads that day. When I've done it with not 315, I've done 225 for 5 sets of 20 as a quad workout, and I did not need anything else in that workout for my quads. Didn't need extensions, leg press, hacks, no. That's it. If you can bang out, that's 100 reps of squats. If you can do that, you're good. You're not going to need anything else that day. So squats. Leg presses, hack squats, lunges, leg extensions, these things, squat machines, these things are also very good. They can all be productive tools toward building leg mass, and you should utilize them all. And you can't squat all the time. When you're younger, you can. As you get older, in your 40s and beyond, a lot of you are going to realize that you can't squat every leg workout. Maybe your lower back can't take it, your knees. You have wear and tear on your body at that point if you've been training 20, 30 or more years. So, when my lower back feels good, I squat. When it doesn't, I do leg press, hack squat, lunges, things like that. I don't squat. I can't put a heavy bar on my back sometimes. But for many, many years I did, and I could. So I've already built all my leg mass. So I'm trying to help you guys who still need to get to that point. How much volume should you be doing for legs? That's also an individual thing. I think there are people that could do 10 to 12 good work sets for legs, and that would be it. That's all they would need. Others would probably respond better to 20, 30, 40 sets. And you never know whether you're a low volume or a high volume person until you try. Valentino just talked about that last week in his video. He tried the heavy duty, the Mike Mentzer style training. Didn't do a damn thing for him. Well, obviously it worked very well for Mentzer and a few other people, but a lot of people respond better to volume. And I think in general, a lot of people respond better to volume on legs because, as I said, they have more endurance than the upper body. They're used to you walk on them every day, you climb stairs. Your legs are always being used, a lot more so than the upper body for most people anyway. So, volume. But I would pick no more than 3 to 4 exercises for quads, 2, 3, maybe 4 at the most exercises for hamstrings in a given workout. And I would do that once a week or once every 5 days. I don't believe legs should be trained twice every week, at least quads and hams both. You could break it up and do quads, say on a Monday, hamstrings on a Thursday, something like that. Or if you do legs, you could do the whole leg on both days. But they do need, I would say, a good 3 to 4 days in between, probably more like 4, in a lot of cases 4 to 5, to recover fully. And that again depends on, are you a younger guy? Do you have an active job? How much sleep are you able to get? How much good food are you able to put away every day? The better your recovery is, the more often you can train body parts in general. Are you on steroids or not? Steroids enhance recovery tremendously. So someone on steroids can train body parts more often and respond because the muscle damage from the training is being repaired faster. Whereas someone who's drug-free takes a little longer, the process. What else about leg training? So, other things with squats. Belt or no belt? I say belt. People will say, well, you never build up your core strength and this and that. Very, very few people I've ever known don't use a belt on leg day. I mean, why would you not want that support? Knee wraps, I'm not so fond of. I've tried them a few times. Probably all the years I've been squatting and training legs heavy, which is over 30 years now, I've probably used knee wraps on 10 or 12 different occasions out of all that. For me, it's not that they don't provide support, but if you're wrapping too tightly, they cut off your blood supply. You start getting like numb and pins and needles in your lower body, and they compress the knee if they're too tight. And if they're too loose, they're not doing anything anyway, except maybe keeping some heat around the knees. But ask yourself, why are you using knee wraps? Are you using knee wraps just so you can go heavier? Well, that's probably not a good thing, because maybe your body's trying to tell you with little signals of pain that you shouldn't be going that heavy. But if you mask the pain and wrap everything up tight and you can't feel what's going on, you don't know what kind of damage you're doing. So I would advise against knee wraps unless you're someone that's used them and really feel they benefit you. But I think they're more for powerlifters. I don't think bodybuilders, generally speaking, should be using knee wraps. That's my opinion. You guys can do whatever you want, of course. So how do you put a good leg routine together? I think at least for a while, in the earlier part of your training career, you should train legs all at once. Hams, quads, calves, everything in one shot. As time goes by, if you notice that one of the two areas is lagging, and in most cases it's going to be the hamstrings, you would either want to train the hamstrings first in your leg day, or break it up and do it at a different workout, about 3 or 4 days away from that quadricep workout. What I did for a long time, there was a point where it was in the later 90s when I realized it. So I was in my late 20s. I looked in my side poses from contest pictures, and my hamstrings were just flat as shit. They were terrible, and my quads were very good. But I said, this is a horrible imbalance. It looks ridiculous. I'm going to train hamstrings first on leg day, and I did that for probably 4 or 5 years. So I would do all my hamstring work, and then I would be a little tired by then, and I would do like 2 or 3 exercises for quads. That would be it. And sometimes I still do that. A lot of times I still do that, actually, because I don't think your hams, unless you're Tom Prince or Kai or Phil, there's very few people that have these huge sweeping hanging hamstrings that really match their quads. I think in most cases, if we're honest and objective looking at our physiques, our hams lag behind our quads, most of us. Mine still do. They're not bad. My hams aren't bad. They're pretty good, but they're not as good as my quads, and I would like them to be. So like I said, a lot of times I will put more energy into my hamstrings. For a couple of years, for 2 years recently, I was breaking them up on different days. Decided to switch that up and prioritize arms in my split over the legs. So I no longer do a quad day and a hamstring day. It's all at once. But you need to try that if you've noticed that your hamstrings are lagging far behind your quads. I don't think, in most cases, otherwise you don't really need to do that. I think you can do legs all at once. And if you really keep things moving, which means not resting a whole lot between sets or between exercises, just keeping a nice pace where you always have a little heavy breathing and you're sweating. Leg training should take it out of you. It should be brutally demanding. It is. it should wipe you out, you know. I'm not saying you should be on the floor gasping for air and about to puke every time, no, but it should be pretty taxing where at the end of a leg workout you're like, wow, okay, I did a good job. You know, you want to know that you really gave it your all. What kind of techniques to use on squats? If squats are involved, I don't really see them being a part of supersets or drop sets safely, just because squats, like deadlifts and bench presses, are something where there's a lot of technique involved, and if your technique breaks down and your form breaks down on a squat, you can get hurt really bad. So I wouldn't recommend necessarily doing these giant sets with like leg press, then hack squat, then leg extension, then lunge. If you do those kind of giant sets, I would leave barbell squats out of the equation. I would do just, you know, those other things where you're not at much of a risk. So putting a routine together might look something like this. Warm up on the bike or the treadmill or the elliptical for a good 5 to 10 minutes, so you got a little tiny bit of a pump going in your legs, a little bit of sweat going, your body temperature's raised. I would always do that before leg day, before training legs. I don't necessarily always do it on every body part, but for legs, I believe that's something everybody should do. Don't skimp on that. Warm up on a piece of cardio equipment, get everything, all the blood flowing and some warmth all around the knees, the hips. You want that. I don't believe in stretching the legs before training them. Numerous studies have shown that reduces the strength. I actually think it increases your chance for injury. You want the muscles to be kind of tight when you're training them. You want to stretch them out after. I do all my leg stretching right after the workout's done. Kind of like, I got that from two men, John Perillo and Dante Trudell, who both advocate, you know, pretty aggressive stretching of the muscle, fascial stretching, right after you train it when it's fully pumped. But I wouldn't stretch before. I know a lot of people do. I'm not a believer in that. Take that for what it's worth. So I would move on from that to maybe 3 or 4 sets of leg extensions, and these aren't super heavy. These are not trying to build mass, because I do not believe the leg extension, and it's a single joint movement. It's an isolation movement. It's not meant to be trained super heavy. I did train that movement super heavy for years and years, and eventually I got knee pain. And I assumed the knee pain was from the heavy hacks or the squats or something. But just as an experiment, I'm not even sure why, I stopped doing such heavy leg extensions where I do the whole stack, sometimes pinning plates to the stack, just because I could. And once I stopped doing that, the knee pain went away, and I realized, okay, it was the leg extensions of all things. You know, you don't suspect it's going to be something like that that's the culprit, but it was. So I would do that just to really warm everything up, get some more blood in there. Depending on how my lower back's doing, I might squat first or last in the workout. Most of the time I'm going to probably do some hamstring work anyway, which just further warms everything up. It's just a good idea. So I would do lying leg curls maybe, or standing one leg curls, or seated leg curls. Then I would go into my first compound movement for legs, which might be squats, or it might be hacks or leg presses. Sometimes if my lower back's not doing well, I won't squat at all. Other times if it's iffy, I'll squat at the end and only do like 225. I won't go very heavy. But by that time, if I've done something else heavy, leg press or hacks, I don't need much weight. 225 is plenty heavy at that point for me. So that's the benefit. I remember Jay Cutler, talking to him many times about his training and leg training. Toward the latter years of his competitive career, he was always squatting last, and just for that reason, so he didn't have to go heavy. And he wasn't putting, you know, his spine under that load with all that weight crushing down on it, or his knees under the strain, or, you know, any of those things, because the heavy weights do put a strain on all that. I would never do more than 2 compound movements per workout. That's me. So I would do something like squats and leg presses, or leg presses and hack squats. I don't feel it's necessary or beneficial, really, to do more than 2 compound movements for legs in one workout. You can only put out so much effort in one workout and really do a good job of it. You know, you could keep going and doing, you could do 20 different exercises for legs, but I guarantee you, by the time you're halfway through that workout, it's, you know, your legs are rubber, your form is starting to go to shit, you're probably exhausted. I'd say work really hard on 2 compound movements. So squats should be one of them for most people. And then you could do something to supplement that, like a leg press or hack squat. And I go higher on reps on the leg press many times because it's safer, your body's supported, you don't have to balance anything. You can do sets of 20, 30, 40, 50 reps and really shock the muscles with a rep scheme they're not used to safely. And you know, you don't have to worry about trying to balance a bar or save anything for the rest of the workout. I've done things like centuries, where you start out with one plate on each side of the leg press for 10, then 2 for 20, 3 for 30, 4. I've never done the 10 for 100 reps as, you know, that's the ultimate goal. This is Eric Fankhauser came up with that, and I think you're supposed to go all the way back down too. So think about that. That'd be, I don't know, a few thousand reps. I don't know. I'd have to do the math, but it's a lot. But if I've ever done that, it's usually, that's all I would do for legs, for quads that day. I would start off with some, you know, maybe stiff leg deadlifts. I do them Romanian style, where there's a little bit of a bend in the knee and a little arch in the back at all times. Never ever round your back on any kind of deadlift, ever. I use a bar for that. So a lot of times I use dumbbells for that. Sometimes even a T-bar row for those. So I would do those, and then I would move on to the centuries. And by the time I was done, which I've done 7 plates for 70. I don't think I ever went past that. I think, but every time I got to 7 for 70, which has probably only been 3, 4, 5 times ever in my life, but I was all set by then. I was like, okay, I'm good. I mean, my legs are just, they're done. They're done. And you know, once you really are truly done, when you know you've given it your all on any given body part at any given workout, that's it. You're done. Stop the workout. There's no point in doing anymore. You know, you've done all you can do productively in that workout. You know, otherwise, if more and more volume was the answer, you know, 12-hour workouts every day would make us all 300 pounds ripped. They don't. What else about legs? I wouldn't do anything the next day in terms of cardio, except maybe some very light cardio. I would do maybe a little bit of cardio at the end of your leg training just to clear out the lactic acid and everything, but nothing too intense. Just to get the blood flowing and clear some of those toxins out of there, the waste products of the muscular contractions, things like that. Wow, this has been a long one. So I'm sure I didn't cover everything about leg training. If you guys have more questions about leg training, post them up. I'll get to them in another Ask Ron, I promise. But that has been all for now. Remember, Instagram, @Ron Harris Muscle. Come on, follow me, guys. That's it for now. I'll talk to you later.